This is TechCrunch. Iranian government hackers are using Telegram as a way to steal data from hacked dissidents, opposition groups, and journalists who oppose the regime around the world. That's according to an FBI alert published last Friday. Now, in the first stage of the attack, the hackers contact their targets and pretend to be a known contact or tech support and are tricked into accepting a link to a malicious file masquerading as legitimate apps, such as Telegram and WhatsApp. Once the target installs the malware, the second stage of the attack connects the infected victim with Telegram bots that allow the hackers to remotely command and control the victim's computer. This allows the hackers to gain remote control of the victim's devices to steal files, take screenshots, and record Zoom calls, according to the FBI. Now, using Telegram as a way to remotely control a victim's device is a common technique by hackers to hide malicious activity among legitimate network traffic, which makes it harder for cybersecurity defenders and anti-malware products to identify. According to the FBI, the hackers responsible for these attacks are allegedly working for Iran's Ministry of Intelligence and Security. The FBI said these attacks are an example of Iranian government hackers' attempts to push the regime's geopolitical agenda. In the alert, the FBI mentioned the pro-Iranian and pro-Palestine fake hacktivist group Handala, although it's not clear if the attacks referenced in the alert were carried out by that group. Earlier this month, Handala claimed responsibility for an attack on medical tech giant Stryker, which resulted in the wiping of tens of thousands of employee devices. In an 8K filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission on Monday, Stryker said it is still recovering from that hack. Last week, the U.S. Justice Department accused Handala of being a front for Iran's government, specifically the MOIS, and for being behind the Stryker hack. At the same time, the FBI took down and seized 2 websites linked to Handala and 2 other sites linked to another Iranian hacktivist group called Homeland Justice. In the recent FBI alert, the Bureau said the 2 groups are linked and controlled by the MOIS. Anthropic is attracting an increasing number of supporters in its fight against the U.S. Department of Defense, which last month designated the AI lab as a supply chain risk after it refused to make concessions on how its AI could be used by the military. In a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat from Massachusetts, equated the DoD's decision with retaliation, arguing that the Pentagon could simply have terminated its contract with the AI lab. She wrote, "I am particularly concerned that the DoD is trying to strong-arm American companies into providing the department with the tools to spy on American citizens and deploy fully autonomous weapons without adequate safeguards." Warren's words echo many other organizations that have spoken out against the Defense Department's treatment of Anthropic. Several tech companies and employees, including from OpenAI, Google, and Microsoft, as well as legal rights groups, have filed amicus briefs in support of Anthropic and denouncing the designation, which is usually applied to foreign adversaries and not U.S. firms. The dispute arose after Anthropic told the Pentagon that it did not want its AI systems to be used for mass surveillance of Americans, and that the technology was not ready for use in targeting or firing decisions of lethal autonomous weapons without human intervention. The Pentagon contested that a private company should not dictate how the military uses technology, and soon after designated the company as a supply chain risk. The label requires any company or agency that does work with the Pentagon to certify that it does not use the designated company's products or services, effectively barring Anthropic from working with any company that also works with the U.S. government. The letter from Warren came a day before a hearing in San Francisco today when District Judge Rita Lynn will decide whether to grant Anthropic a preliminary injunction that seeks to preserve the status quo while its case against the DoD is litigated. While Anthropic is suing the DoD for infringing on its First Amendment rights and punishing the company based on ideological grounds, The Defense Department has maintained that Anthropic's refusal to allow any lawful military uses of its technology was a business decision, not protected speech, and that the designation was a straightforward national security call and not punishment for the company's views. The AI lab last week submitted 2 declarations to the court that claim the government's logic is flawed, as they depend on technical misunderstanding as well as points of concern that were not raised during the company's negotiations with the DoD. Warren has also written to OpenAI CEO Sam Altman asking for details of the company's agreement with the DoD, which came just a day after the Pentagon blacklisted Anthropic. Well, Hachette Book Group said it will not be publishing a novel called Shy Girl over concerns that artificial intelligence was used to generate the text. The novel was scheduled to be published in the United States this spring. Hachette said it will also discontinue the book in the UK, where it is already available. Although the publisher claimed the decision came after a thorough review of the text, reviewers on Goodreads and YouTube had been speculating that the book was likely AI-generated, and the New York Times said it asked Hachette about the Shy Girl concerns the day before the announcement. In an email to the New York Times, author Mia Ballard denied using AI to write her novel, instead blaming an acquaintance she'd hired to edit the original self-published version of Shy Girl. Ballard says she's pursuing legal action and that as a result of the controversy, her mental health is at an all-time low and her name is ruined for something that she didn't even personally do. Writer Lincoln Michel and other industry observers have noted that U.S. publishers rarely do extensive editing when they acquire titles that have already been published in other forms. That's all for now. For more tech news, go to TechCrunch.com.